if you think about product management time, we think about it in kind of red, yellow, green sort of contact. So red is customer support, customer service, customer success problem. Okay, here comes a product manager. Yellow would be, involvement in a current transaction, sale, renewal. It's just not necessarily the highest best use of a product manager's time. But if you're spending too much time in red and yellow and not enough time in green, that's not a good future indicator.
Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on the pod today. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you and get to know more of your story and your background. But I'll let you first introduce yourself to our audience. Tell the world a little bit about who you are and what you do every day.
Okay, yeah, so glad to be on, George. Appreciate it. My name's Jimmy Fortuna. I'm the Chief Product Officer at a company called Enveris. We are a vertical market SaaS company that is dedicated to the world's energy sector. So that's the only thing we do. We have a lot of powerful products, but we serve only the energy sector and the various industries within the sector with those products. And as the Chief Product Officer, I'm responsible for the classic product management function. So, I feel like you almost have to specify this because people use the term product and product management so loosely. Yeah. We definitely separate product management from product development. So the chief technology officer is a peer of mine. I sometimes joke that I'm the department of what and he's the department of how, and that's
Ooh, I like that. I'm going to steal that. That's great.
So that's kind of the important part of the product management and development responsibility. Something special to our firm, and I think it's really special, not just different, it's special, is that we also have a large cohort of intelligence analysts that are part of my organization because we publish essentially what amounts to investor market research. So it's the type of research that you would find from a buy side or sell side Wall Street firm, but we don't hold any positions in energy assets, nor do we represent any party in transactions. So it's really quite objective in terms of the analysis, and investors and operators alike very highly value it because of that objectivity. And the products that we build are used to actually derive the research outcomes. So it really is some special sauce that I really wish I could have had in product management jobs before this one. But there are very few companies that have a reason to do research like that. So understandably, it's an unusual thing. We try to take the greatest advantage of it that we can.
It's interesting because you think traditional, product organizations are the data is a means to a different end. And you're saying that in some ways, the data is an end to the market that you serve and to what you can provide to your customers and your market share, I guess.
That's right. Yeah. So we provide very hard to get and sometimes impossible to get data from any other source. But it always, really from inception, from the company's founding more than 26 years ago, that data has always been delivered inside of a what we would call today a SaaS or cloud-based software container. Back in 1999, you didn't call it that, but
Right, of course.
but it was browser based, zero local footprint, all that kind of thing. And so the company's software offerings have become really quite sophisticated over the decades. Originally, it was basically show things in a web browser, and that was it. And then you've got some really very advanced capabilities that appear in those applications now, alongside the data.
That's fascinating. And I want to come back to that, but I want to hear more about you. So I know I've heard through a little bit of my research that you have a very interesting background as to kind of how you got obviously into the role you're in now, but you've been in product and for a long time. So tell me a little bit about your journey and kind of through product, maybe from the beginning, wherever you want to start in the beginning. We can go back as far as it makes sense. But how did you get into this world and what kind of led you into the role you're in today?
Yeah, so I'll keep the earliest part really short, but it is relevant. I thought that I was going to be an engineer. So I went to an engineering school. I went to the Georgia Institute of Technology, or Georgia Tech as people call it. And I was wrong about being an engineer. I was bad at it. I was not good enough at math to do 5 levels of calculus, and I also, by virtue of doing engineering jobs as a co-op student, where I would be assigned to companies to go do work while I was in school, I also discovered I was really not very good at it and didn't enjoy it. I liked technology a lot. But I didn't like doing engineering work, and but I was in really hardcore atoms not bits sort of engineering jobs, things like steel mills and iron
Oh yeah,
foundries and
yeah.
snack food distribution, these really kind of heavy industry sort of things. And when I got out of school, it was in the middle of a recession, and I was looking to take any job I could get, basically, and what we would call a network administrator job was what I
Yeah.
could get at the time. And I happened to be good with computers, as they would say back in those days. And
Yes.
so
My mom still says that about me today, so I get it.
yeah, and so that was fine. It was in cable television, but I didn't want to be a cable lifer, and I got an opportunity to be a product manager in the early mid '90s, when my best friend called me and said, "Hey, we need a product manager for this startup I'm working in." And I'm like, "Well, what's a product manager?" And he didn't even really know, but he was convinced that I could do it, despite not being able to say what the job was.
Detailed.
And it was a startup. It was growing really fast. It was right down the street, kind of perfect for me. And so I started at the job and took the work, essentially the product management work that the CEO didn't want to do, off of his plate.
Mm. Hmm.
And so that was my entree into product management. That was a vertical market restaurant technology and convenience store technology firm. So basically, think point of sale systems.
Yeah, right, right.
And that was, coming up on 30, 35 years ago now. So I went through multiple industries after that. Not just restaurant and retail automation, but several others, and ultimately landed in energy about 10 years ago. 10 years ago this March, actually. And so multiple industry perspectives, which has been really cool. It's I wouldn't trade that for anything. Being able to know what's the same everywhere versus what's different, that's specific to an industry, is almost like a superpower. It's
Right.
really really helpful. And yeah, so that's a little bit about my background.
It's one of the, I nerd out on the fact that like there are days when I wish I would, would have gone fully into an in-house product leadership type role, product path role. But the agency world of which I live in, you get the exposure to so many different companies and organizations that it is kind of your journey of saying you can beg, borrow, and steal from what is true across all these different places and actually level up wherever you are.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of as you look at the early days of going from kind of a point of sale, product management role that no one had definition around what it was, to today, what are some of the principles that you learned along the way? What are some of the things that you went, these are the things that are pretty consistently true, if not the means by which you apply them might change, right? But what are some of the things that you picked up along the way that you say, this is just a truth of how this work gets done?
Yeah, it's funny. It'll sound, very kind of, I think, standard, product management academic in quotes, but I like the pragmatic methodology, and so those are the language terms that I tend to use. Our people all go through it, at least
Yeah.
at least through the first three, and then we do other ones too, but those are the common ones. And I would say that I agree with the pragmatic folks when they say, if you get nothing else right, find market problems.
Yeah.
Like, that's really important, because you can do all kinds of other functional stuff in product management really well, but if you're not finding market problems, it kind of doesn't matter. So
Right.
so that's important. And the way that we tend to think about it, I hope I'm not misquoting this, it's, things that are pervasive, compelling, urgent, there's a willingness to pay, for a solution to the problem. And that's the most important thing. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It really doesn't. I've been, as I say, in several, energy, fleet vehicle transportation, home automation, restaurant and retail automation, all kinds of stuff. And it's the same. That finding
Yeah.
those compelling, urgent, pervasive problems that people have a willingness to pay for a solution for. That's really where it's at. And you do that through lots of intimate customer contact. You don't do that in the office. You don't do that by reading the trade rags.
Get out of the building.
Yeah, you got to talk to customers, and importantly, listen well. And it's hard for people to do that. It really is. It takes learning. It takes reps. Takes some hard knocks sometimes to know what listening really means.
I want to camp there for a second, because if you were to say what good listening looks like,
Hmm.
how would you describe that? Maybe that's a difficult thing to answer, but it's something that we talk about a lot on my team, or even with our clients, as we're kind of helping them to kind of level up their game. Is, are you actually hearing what the core problem is? Do you have a mechanism to both give and receive feedback internally across your team, and better understand what's happening from your market? Do you actually see it, or are you just making noise? How do you think that there are ways, I guess, practices that would help to do that better?
Yeah, um, Melissa Perry, who I think is relatively well known in the
Yeah.
among the product management community. I like the way that she said it once, which is, don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with the customer's problem.
Mm. Yeah.
It's really easy for product managers, especially new ones that are just kind of learning the craft, to want to goal seek in engaging with customers to whatever it is they're working on. you know, um, like they're
Try to connecting the dots that there's no connection. Right. Yeah.
right. They're in a customer meeting and it's like, well, surely the compelling need for the thing that I'm working on is in there somewhere. I just need to ask them the right questions and it will surface. And we have one of our core values at Enveris is courageous innovation. And
Mm.
and I think courage for a product manager includes you're asking open-ended questions about what the customer's urgent problems are. It may have nothing to do with
Yeah.
what you're working on, like zero. Like it might not even be anything that your company does, you know,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and that's okay. Like hopefully you've screened things well enough to where you don't have too many of those where they're that far afield. But the fact is that you've got to kind of be prepared for wherever the customer goes. And if you're not doing that, you're actually not doing your job. Like you really need to find out what it is that's on their mind, and accept that it may have nothing at all to do with your particular product portfolio assignment. That's okay. That's not a failing.
Mm.
Those non-commercial conversations are really really important. They're where most of the long-term value comes from.
We refer to that sometimes as kind of the bridge building, right? It's that you have to kind of build the bridges to maybe where the real value is. But if you're not willing to kind of build the bridges, you'll have to navigate around it, and it'll take you a lot longer and a lot more headache to get there.
Yeah.
I'm I'm curious though, in your experience, you mentioned you're kind of a peer relationship as this chief product officer with, a technical officer, right?
Hmm.
The How does that play out across your teams though? Because having that courageous innovation is altruistically great, but it's very difficult. The rest of the culture has to support that, right? It's
Hmm.
not just something that happens just purely on the product team going out and having customer conversations or potential customer conversations. How does that play out when sales is saying, well, we're trying to get dollars in the door, and we're trying to sell a thing, and we've
Hmm.
committed to X, Y, and Z. Or maybe customer service is saying, hey, we're getting this feedback that they want these 15 features. How does that all play in concert with itself, that you look at your peers and you say, we are aligned on how we serve,
Yeah.
right? uh,
Yeah, that starts at the top of the company. It has nothing to do with product management in isolation. So
yeah.
for some of your viewers or listeners, I'm sure are going to be familiar with the Patrick Lencioni books. The
Of course.
five dysfunctions of a team is my favorite. I haven't read them all, by the way. Full disclosure, I think I've maybe two or three of his books, but
That's probably one of his best, and the way the storytelling in that book is incredible. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's as soon as I read that book the first time, it completely reframed what I thought about what a good culture was, because I had
Mm.
been part of a business for 15 years, quite a long tenure, really, in
Mm.
today's world, up until about a year before that time, and it was pretty good business, good people. I'd say, as cultures go, pretty good. And
Yeah.
I thought to myself, yeah, that was as good as it gets, because I'd seen bad and that was good, and so having only
Yeah.
one good,
Juxtaposed,
yeah,
everything looks great.
I was
Yeah.
like, this place is nirvana, right? And
Yeah.
and I read the book and it reframed it, and I'm like, whoa, actually that business was good as compared to everything I had experienced before, but it actually was pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah, interesting.
And then the business that I'm in today, which, again, March will make 10 years for me, so that just next month, it is substantially better than the business that
Wow.
I had thought was good. A great place to work, and it was. But the
Yeah.
but the place that I'm in now, culturally at the top, this idea that there can't be any daylight between the executive management of the company is really taken very seriously. And as a result, the questions you're asking, like, well, what about what customer success wants, and what about what sales wants, and what about what marketing says,
Mhm.
what tech thinks the priorities are based on changing technology. Those things are much easier for us to drive in alignment because the people at the top of the company view everybody else's problem as their problem. If somebody else has got a problem, you don't complain about it. You ask yourself how to help. And if you're not doing that, then you're not doing your job. So
I like that.
I think it kind of starts there, and because that's how the company culture works, we're much more likely to be able to address diverging needs by function. And
Mm.
we also have a product roadmap process that I believe helps quite a lot because everybody participates in it at some level. Like when we're making strategic roadmap reviews, which we do with some frequency, we have representations from, I would say, not every function in the company, but most functions in the company.
Yeah, right.
Certainly, if they're customer facing, go to market, they're involved. If they're involved in building things, they're involved. And so nobody's ever surprised by the roadmap. Nobody never has. Nobody ever misses an opportunity to have contributed thought into the choices that we're making. Nobody is lacking for a chance to say, I think that assumption is too aggressive or not aggressive enough or whatever the case might be. And as a result, you've kind of weighed in everybody's
Hmm.
functional demands and desires on the front end. So that helps quite a bit. I guess both of those things. The culture is definitely the most important thing because
Yeah.
without that, you could have all the roadmap meetings you want. It wouldn't matter. But
And people are going to do whatever they want to do because they don't believe that the culture has its best intent in place.
that's right. That's right. But with the cultural substrate there and the process of how we run our roadmaps and kind of tie them to outcomes, both long term and near term,
Yeah.
that I think creates both trust in a good future and accountability for present results at the same time. And yes, that is a struggle. That is a trade off. Like
Sure.
if you think about product management time, we think about it in kind of red, yellow, green sort of contact. So red is customer support, customer service, customer success problem. Customer
Right.
customer has problem, backup, need backup. Okay, here comes a
Yeah.
product manager.
Solve problem. Solve
Right.
problem. Keep customer happy. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yellow would be involvement in a current transaction.
Mm, yeah.
Sale, renewal, whatever the case may be. It's not bad. It's just not necessarily the highest best use of a product manager's time. If
Yeah.
you're doing too much of that, then maybe product market fit isn't exactly what it should be, right?
Yeah.
Or,
And
or
it should force you to ask some other questions. Yeah.
yeah, there's some other stuff going wrong, right? Or maybe you're thin on sales coverage. That can happen too,
Yeah.
right?
Sure. Right.
The green is the good stuff. There's no transaction in the meeting. We're not actually talking about anything we have for sale.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
you dig it out of us, like that customer might do that, but the purpose of the meeting is not related to any incipient transaction. It's about understanding the customer's problems and their view of the future better and getting alignment with them. That's the really good stuff. And then you're not going to do all of that, but if you're spending too much time in red and yellow and not enough time in green, that's not a good future indicator.
Just had a conversation with a company yesterday, and this language of kind of the red, yellow, the green would be really helpful for them because you could almost clearly describe that 99% of their time is in the red, right? They're just putting out fires. And that makes it really difficult to then be able to say, well, where can we provide opportunity or value to solving people's problems in the future? And what I think they're afraid of, and rightfully so maybe, is we're very quickly going to become irrelevant because all we've been doing is putting out fires and not actually moving forward.
Yeah,
But it
Yeah.
sounds like that's something you're intentionally tuning towards.
I'm sorry. We're intentionally
It
tuning
sounds
towards.
like that's something your team is intentionally tuning to look for. Hey, let's be careful.
Mhm.
Don't get too stuck in that, that the downward spiral of firefighting, because it's elusive. I mean, like, or it's attractive, I guess, because it
Mhm.
feels like you're accomplishing
I,
something
I,
sometimes.
I would say it a little differently. It would
Oh,
be
please, please.
it would be like if you've got too much red going on, solve that problem.
Oh, okay,
Right,
okay.
right. Like in other words, the customer's needs are always most important,
I
right?
see. Okay, great, great.
So
That's good clarification.
figure out how to make that go away, not figure out how not to spend time there, right? Like,
Good. Yeah.
um,
So actually address it.
yeah, that's right. It could be that
Mm,
there's a signal to noise ratio problem and some sort of customer facing function is not handling things that it's supposed to handle. That's pretty
yeah.
unlikely in a well run organization. It's possible, but it's unlikely. And
Yeah.
I think very highly of our customer facing folks. So when you've got something like that bubbling up, take it seriously and run it to ground and fix it. Don't treat it as this thing that is an annoying waste of your time that you really wish people would just get over. Like
That's
that's
good.
probably not the best choice. But rather than lip sticking the pig, fix the
Yeah.
problem, right?
Yeah. That's really good.
So that you can do higher value things because if you don't if you're not satisfying the customer with what they're already buying from you today, why are they going to buy anything else from you tomorrow, right?
Right.
That,
Right.
that you don't have permission for that conversation. So
You've lost the trust. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah. No, that's really good.
fix the root of the red problems, take care of that,
Yep.
decisively, so that you can spend time doing things that are higher value add.
Great. I assume though that requires, because what you were talking about requires a culture that also is good at giving and receiving feedback. Because you mentioned several times, it's like, hey, you can bring it to the table. Where are your concerns? Where are their risks? Where are their opportunities here? Like, it feels like that also is a culture that invites others to the table. That it's not just about disseminating information.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about customer contact in this example or
Well, it could be
internal too?
customer contact or even the way that you interact as a team in house, right?
Hmm.
So if the teams, so for example, I know there are organizations where whether it's founder led or key executive led, that it can be just like, hey, here's the marching orders, go do, don't ask questions, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Take the tickets, go complete the tickets, come back when you're done.
Sure.
But and then hey, sales team, go sell the thing we built. Marketing team, go promote the thing. And instead going, hey, no, we want that input, we want that feedback from our peers, from the team. We want to be able to have a culture that understands the why behind what we're doing.
Mm.
It sounds to me like that's something that is natural for you all, but not natural for everyone.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it's natural at all in default corporate organization. Like if you just say, here's an org chart, start putting people on it,
Yeah,
and then add some financial goals, and is an emergent property of that hierarchy harmonious interaction across functions? No, like that
yeah,
that's
not we don't err towards harmony, do we?
yeah, that's not the norm, and I think that's why most companies' cultures are less than they could be. Like
Mm,
you have to actually have direction, vulnerability, trust from the top that says this is how it's going to be. It's what I said a few minutes ago about the Lencioni parable, which is if another function is having a problem, you don't get to treat it as though it's just their problem. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not how it works. Like, and it might mean that you have to apply discretionary effort temporarily in a way that you wouldn't normally. But that's what it means to be on a team. Just think about it. Like you've got a sports team. A lot of I've never played sports, but I've watched some.
I wasn't a huge sports guy either. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I basically watch Yellow Jackets football, and that's about it.
I love it. I
But
love it.
but if a quarterback's making a pass, there's two humans on either end of the ball, and
Right.
they both have to help each other make a completion. That's not and if you got a receiver that's got an attitude that says that guy never puts it on my numbers, and and why do you think our pass yardage is low? Well, it's like, that's not how it works. Like
It's a team.
yeah, everybody stretches, everybody helps, sort of thing. If you don't start there, in terms of what it
Mm.
means for everybody to contribute, and they treat problems as though they have these hard functional lines, and say, well, if those guys would just do a better job of what they do, then we'd be fine. If that's a significant threat in your culture, no amount of process is going to fix that.
The us versus them
Yeah.
mentality is there's no place for it.
Nope. It
Yep,
just,
that's
yeah,
great.
you cannot process your way out of a culture problem.
Okay, well, let's shift to process a little bit then. As we're talking about this now, there is a narrative that's taking place, and even some question of what's real, and what's not. AI is the moment we are in, right? I'm curious as to when you look at your team and your culture and the way that you think about product, how is AI enhancing that? How is it redefining it? How are you thinking about it? I want to think first, how are you thinking about it as a product practice, as a culture, as an organization? How are you thinking about applying or using or avoiding AI as a tool in your tool chest right now?
Yeah, so I'm going to have a curious mix of input here,
Love it.
because a fair amount of what we're doing is close enough to the vest that I'm going to talk around it,
Totally
because
understandable.
I'm not trying to say competitors pay close attention to what we say publicly, but
Yep. Yep.
I'd rather not find out. So let's start with something that I think we firmly believe. I certainly do personally, and I talk about it in these terms when I talk about it. Artificial intelligence is the most significant technological development, since pre-humans learned how to use fire.
Yeah.
It's that big of a deal. And it's kind of hard to get your head around how big a deal that is. Like, so George, you're probably familiar with the concept of a general purpose technology, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, so it's probably easier to talk about in examples. So electricity is a great example of a general purpose technology, right? So, electricity does all kinds of wondrous, miraculous things. You can use it for lighting. You can use it to, turn motors that do work, like everything from, a car to a dishwasher, whatever. You can use it to transmit signals over space. So, very, very powerful general purpose technology. It often winds its way into things and makes those things radically better as a result of it using, that general purpose capability. So,
Right. But it can be applied to almost limitless solutions, right?
yeah, it's very, very broadly used, right? So, electricity is a great example. Heat engines are a great example.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything from passenger ships to cars to planes. Um, Artificial intelligence is that, but I think it's even more than that. So if I haven't found this in the literature yet, but I also haven't looked, so who knows, maybe it's there. But I might refer to it as a foundational technology or a primary technology. So what do I mean by that is like stone tools, our most ancient hominin pre-human ancestors learned how to make stone tools. And we're not the only animals that make tools, but we're definitely the animals that make the most use of tools for sure,
Yeah, we scaled it the most. Yeah, for sure.
right? And so stone tools were, to our knowledge, the first time you had an implement. You create an implement that allows your body to physically do something that your body could not do on its own, right? So
Hmm.
so there's this magnification of your physical capability. And then when we started using fire, we were like, okay, well, hey, whoa, I can now utilize energy that doesn't come from burning calories in the form of the food that I eat,
Right.
right?
Right.
Find lots of animals that make tools. If you find an animal that uses fire, you're going to win a Nobel Prize, right?
Yeah, very good. Very good.
We are the only.
No one else makes fire. Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
foundational technology, and we could talk for hours about all the things that flow from fire. I
Of
believe
course.
artificial intelligence is a foundational technology. It's like stone tools or fire. It's that big of a deal, right? So it's more than general purpose. It's a bigger deal.
Okay.
It's a bigger deal than that. So with that philosophical understanding, that's how we think about how important this technology is at our company. And so better be thinking about how you use it to do your job, better be thinking about how we use it to provide value to customers. And it has to be kind of like your first thought right now.
Right. It's the default now. Yeah.
Yeah, like I did this. I've done this way forever. How should I change it because of AI? Maybe I can't think of anything right now, but keep asking. You never know.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. So
Imagine what it could be if the tooling was just slightly better. Yeah.
yeah, and the capability curve is growing so fast that what was outlandish 3 years ago when ChatGPT was first unleashed on the world is now normal, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
think about I think the deep thinkers 3 years ago knew how big a deal this foundational technology was, and they could that if you're Dario Amodei or if you're Demis Hassabis or whatever, you kind of knew how this was going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the average person didn't, and so they would look at what ChatGPT could do, say 3 years ago, and say, yeah, but it can't, and fill in the blank. Those blanks are getting filled in really, really fast if people haven't noticed, right? And the difference in coding assist, as an example, between Thanksgiving and New Year's of this past year
Massive.
was shocking.
Yeah.
Like I've known people writing software for almost 40 years, and a lot of them very sober, very hard edged, no
Love the craft. Yeah.
no
Right.
no bullshit technologists. Like these are people that aren't easily hyped, and they're looking at this and going, whoa, like this is a serious leap in capability in a very short period of time. And the point to be made, there's a few points that come from that actually. The point to be made here is that you have to be prepared not only for these leaps to take place with quite a bit of suddenness, but that they're actually probably going to not only continue but to increase in frequency,
Mm-hmm.
which is really hard to get your head around because we've never lived in a world like that, right?
That much change, that big of change, that fast.
No, I mean we have no frame of reference for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and this is actually supremely challenging for people trying to be responsive business leaders because what my favorite professor told me this when I was back in college 700 years ago. That if you're a decision maker in a business that's trying to add value to the organization, you're always engaged in what he called the dual prediction process. And what he meant by that was if you're looking into the future, what are your customers' needs going to be at some future point in time? Because what they are right now is kind of old news, right? Like
Sure.
it's probably a vended market. Customers are already solving those problems with your help
Yep.
or competitors or whatever. It's kind of the future point that is more important. And then so you're trying to predict what that is, and then you're also trying to predict does your organization's capabilities have the effectiveness necessary to meet that future need in a competitive way. So you're predicting
Right.
two things, right? Where's the puck going to be, and can you get there? Right?
Sure.
Is kind of the two things.
No
right?
pressure. No
Right.
pressure. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
that's normally difficult.
Yep.
Predictions are hard, but now you've got this foundational technology which is moving at this outrageously fast speed with step changes in capability that appear seemingly at random.
Mm-hmm.
And now, how do you make those predictions?
Yeah. No.
That's really hard.
I used to say with my team, if we look the same 2 years from now as we do today, we're on our way to being obsolete or irrelevant. And that time frame has changed to almost 6 to 9 months, right?
Yeah.
That we have to be willing and able and aware enough to adapt that quickly now, for not only our organizations but even the clients that we serve. We need to prepare them to be thinking that quickly to change and adapt. And that is, like you said, that's never been. I can't think of another time in history, human history, where we've ever had to change that much that fast.
No. No. I mean, you can come up with like disaster scenarios, like
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know, the
But they
black
were,
the,
to
the
some
black
extent, they
death,
were one-off.
right?
Right. Right.
But
Right.
that's it. Like
Yeah.
you can come up with negatives, but I can't think of positives where things that were going that fast. Like even
No.
if you go back like to the 1880s when electricity, that general purpose technology, was all of a sudden just kind of exploding, right? Like
Right.
you had you had electric lighting and electric motors, and both of those things pretty quickly transformed how you could build in cities. right?
Right.
Like as an example, most people don't know that before the elevator, buildings kind of topped out at about 4 floors mostly,
Yeah, we
right?
don't go much higher. We don't like to
Right.
climb a lot of stairs. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, wait a minute, we can actually make them 40 stories and it's no big deal because we've
Right.
got this thing called
Right.
an elevator and electric lighting and blah blah blah. Well, that changed how you built things,
Hmm.
but it didn't change the city itself that fast because
Right.
you actually had to build new things, right?
The infrastructure took time.
Yeah, this is different. So
Hmm.
we have put computing technology and sensors and network connections in just about everything, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And the speed with which these capabilities can extend to parts of that network's periphery are kind of shocking, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, smartphones are the biggest example. These general purpose, pretty powerful computers that we've always got with us.
We've got edge computing and a lot of other examples.
Oh yeah, yeah, and so those edge devices tend to be more specialized, maybe a little harder to change. But the fact is that they can still change pretty quick. Like if you've got let's say that let's make up an example. You got a vending machine, and the vending machine's got some sort of main computer in it, and the very large majority of the vending machine's value is not that. It's the motors and the gadgets and the things that do or don't handle coins or take payment or whatever. And the little computer thing in there is just not that much of
Hmm. Right.
the overall thing's cost. So if you can transform how that thing works by changing that component out, you're going to do that,
Hmm.
and that can happen relatively quickly. So and that's the world we're living in.
And I don't want to pull on a thread for you to have to go down a path that is more about your current context and the things that you're innovating on inside your organization. But I think think back to the fact that you're in energy, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that the limiting factor for us being able to actually realize that future is going to be energy. So
For sure.
we won't pull on that thread too far because I don't want you to have to go down that path. But I think that's an interesting time to be really focused on how do we move enough electrons to be able to or reduce the amount of electrons needed to do that compute. So I think
Yeah.
that's a fascinating time to be thinking about what are the constraints, and the constraints become almost first principle constraints
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah, you're right about that, and I don't mind talking about this some because it's public. It's not
sure. Yeah.
secret sauce about what we're doing. The hyperscalers are our customers.
Yeah.
The utilities, the electric utilities are our customers. The people that provide them the fuel are our customers. And I would say that you're dead right about energy being a binding constraint. I think Elon Musk recently said that we're about to be in a position where we're going to have more GPUs than we can power up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's probably right. It depends on who we is. Like if you say if we're selling them to China, then nope, they're going to be fine.
They've got plenty of electricity and they build it fast.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
I think they're still building like a coal plant every 2 weeks. Um,
Which is
s-
wild.
yeah. So and they've got plenty of
My dad
unused.
was in nuclear power for 35 years, and so I remember the fact that we haven't done that in a while, right?
Yeah.
And so bringing those types of things online again, or even thinking about the fact that it takes us 10 years to build those plants.
Yeah, yeah, it's they've got so much unused capacity right now
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they got no problem with electrons. So not true here. You've got basically the hyperscalers are building their generation to behind the meter to a much higher degree than people might guess. It's approaching I think 40% at
Oh,
this
interesting.
point.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like pre World War One stuff for us. Like it used to be that before the First World War, a lot of industry powered itself behind the meter.
Yeah.
They built their own power plants, and then
Yep.
policymakers said no, 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 get on the grid, because they basically wanted those industries to share in the cost of building the grid out. Now it's first of all the utilities can't do it fast enough. Secondly,
Nor is our grid ready for it.
right,
Yeah.
and to make it ready for it would actually hit ratepayers a lot harder. And so, we're basically doing this energy build out behind the meter for data centers because we kind of have to, and
Yeah.
and it is a binding constraint. Energy is for sure. I think, one of my friends, Mark Mills, he's an energy analyst that's been around a long time. And he says, and I agree with him, that the demand for compute is functionally infinite, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
there's literally no limit to compute demand, practically speaking, because
Yeah.
when you start to think about the uses of compute in a world where you have powerful artificial intelligence, as Dario Amodei likes to call it, he
Yep.
doesn't say general intelligence. He says powerful artificial
And I don't think
intelligence.
he's wrong,
Yeah,
unfortunately. I mean, it's we're trying to figure that out, but yeah.
yeah. So if you think about it in a world of powerful AI, and remember, there's applications for powerful AI out there like AlphaFold, you know, where you're basically describing how do all the proteins in your body interact. Like
Right.
there's no limit on the demand for what you can do with compute like that. Like for our
Mm-hmm.
customers, for
Mm-hmm.
example, our hydrocarbon customers, they are always looking for any kind of marginal gain that they can find in the extraction of molecules from the ground, be they
Yep.
oil or gas. And very small things can make very big marginal outcome differences over time. And so their demand for compute is functionally infinite. The same thing for electricity power generators. Solving grid balances and solving interconnection queues and solving congestion problems and all kinds of grid stability issues. These things
Yeah.
take enormous compute, and there's essentially limitless demand for it. So
And the
AI,
more we learn, the more we'll realize we could apply it in ways we hadn't even considered yet.
yeah, that's right. So yeah,
Hmm.
energy is definitely a binding constraint. Always has been. It's
Yep.
civilization's master resource. So
That's right.
and it's certainly no different for compute, and therefore for cognition.
So that maybe brings us full circle, and I want to land the plane here. As we think about the moment that we're in, like you said, the default has to be: is this something that AI can help me do, or can revolutionize the way that we do this? Right.
Mhm.
Um, that's kind of bringing us back to when we start thinking about the teams, the culture, the cross-functional work, the value of the peer, the understanding and focus of the problem of our client or our customer. um, where do you see, I know you can't make predictions, but where do you see the next 6 to 9 months product really changing, the way we think about product? Is it really going to change, or is it just going to be accelerated? Are we still going to just need to focus on the problem and be able to do that at scale faster, better understanding our customers through tooling? I'm trying to think about how do we, knowing that our audience is, their day in and their day out is, I'm trying to think about how I build the best products that serve my customers and my clients better. I'm trying to react to the market. I'm trying to look, like you said, your entrepreneur, a friend that said, hey, we need to be thinking about how to look ahead and also create value ahead, right?
Mhm.
How do we think that this world of AI, the acceleration of change, plays out in the world of product,
Well, um,
or how we approach it, maybe?
yeah. So you're probably familiar with Nate Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the way that he described what he thought was going to happen when he was kind of digesting the explosion in productivity created by Claude Code and Opus 4.5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The way that he described it was that the bottleneck is moved. I like the way he described it, and I think the consensus that I'm seeing out there among people that are trying to do their deep thinking on X and things like that is is that the bottleneck is moving actually towards go to market,
Yep.
meaning that the sales, marketing, or organizations and ultimately customers themselves, there's a natural velocity beyond which they can't go in terms of how much they can absorb, how fast, right?
Yeah. Right. Will the market change fast enough? We can build whatever we need for them, but will they actually adopt it?
Yeah, and I believe that's probably true. So let's say, for the sake of argument, for the sake of intellectual argument, that it is true. Then what you would be doing, your behavior would be saying, I want to change the way that we deliver such that with high value, I can basically make that prediction by Nate Jones true as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I want to basically create the go-to-market function as the bottleneck, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
obviously, the go-to-market function is going to do its own things
Right.
to
So it's got
debottle.
to innovate as well. Yep.
Sure,
Right.
and it is, and
Yep.
those things are changing. Ultimately, the customer the customer will be the hard limit, right? And so that means two things, actually, not just one. It means two. One is that your velocity of delivery should be what you should be aiming for is to actually rate limit at the next bottleneck, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your release velocity, that should be your goal, the goal that you're seeking, right?
Yep. Yep.
But the other goal is considering that the customer is going to be swamped with people that are assaulting them with new things at an amazing pace. You better be making the thing that rises to the top.
That much better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're not going to have any shortage of things to think about spending on. And
Mm-hmm.
so when compelling, pervasive, urgent, all those things, that's great. Even within that list, there's going to be a stack rank hierarchy, right?
I think you're right.
And
Yep.
so what quality of problem are you working on?
Yeah.
What quality of problem do you even know is there,
Yep.
right? I mean, Peter Drucker said, the most inefficient thing you can do is to very effectively do something that you shouldn't be doing at all, right?
That's right. Quadrant. Yeah. Quadrant thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. I
Hmm.
mean, again, we're back to market problems, just as we always were.
Yep.
Um,
As we always will be to that. And just
yeah.
it's the question of how how fast can that move? What's the limiting factor on that?
Yeah, and so if that's true, then customer intimacy is more important than ever, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
remember the dual prediction process. Like, what are their future needs going to be?
Yeah.
Well, how are you going to know that if you're not hanging out with them in a time of really high rapid rate change?
That's right.
Like if you're
And
if
through trusted conversations and yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if your sampling rate is every quarter, good luck.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Not enough. Not enough.
yeah.
Well, oh my gosh, I think you and I could nerd out for another 3 hours. But I wanna just say huge thank you for first off to sharing with the audience your insights and also for taking the things that you've learned over your entire career and applying it to such a crucial and important moment in time, right?
Hmm.
Because I think you were absolutely right. I'm 100% with you that this is a time like we've never seen before. Both exciting, scary a little bit, right? There's some cautious optimism here, but also I think that the train is already very fully going down the tracks, and so we need to figure out how do we be good stewards of it. So thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you for spending your time with us today. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds. Maybe we come back in and we check in 9 months to see how much changed in that time.
I'll be sure to bring my UFO with me when I do that.
That's great. Thanks, Jimmy, for coming on today. I appreciate your time.
All right, we'll see you.